Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. If you want to help support these videos, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Satanic Butt Mechanic. Dress professionally? Okay, I will. Something like 20 years ago, I used to work at a call center doing phone surveys. We were told we had to dress nice in case any clients came in to check the place out. For guys, it had to be a nice collared shirt with slacks. Women could wear what they wanted because all they had to say was, "Oh, I bought this as a complete outfit at Kmart/Kohl's/a yard sale." This is what management said. Women would wear what they wanted without repercussions as long as it wasn't holy. Also, men were not allowed to wear jewelry while women were. Naturally, I had a problem with this. My argument is that we were on the phone. No one cares what we're wearing, but management would not budge. Malicious compliance. I wore a mismatched three-piece suit with a neon pink tie, pastel green button-up collared shirt with hooker hoop earrings. Management was not happy and called me into the office with HR. I told them I was wearing a complete suit that I bought as an outfit at the thrift store, so that complied with the dress code, and if a woman could wear jewelry, then I could as well, unless they wanted my lawyer's card for sexual discrimination. Management was not very happy, but since I complied with their rules, there was nothing they could say. I think tossing the word litigation with regards to the sexual discrimination the guys faced kinda freaked them out a little as well. They stopped bugging me. I put together a few more suits so I would not be wearing the same one every day. Side note, they had given me an extra day off one week and I needed the hours, so I switched with someone else. Turns out a client was indeed coming into the facility and management did not want me on site for that visit. I happened to come out of the bathroom right as the client was about to pass by with management. They stop and look at me. Management, shocked Pikachu face. Client, amused confusion. And they say, "Who are you?" I say, "I'm Satanic Butt Mechanic." Management finds their voice and says, "Yes, he's great on the phones and helps with morale with his outrageous take on fashion." Me being young and not caring about the job anymore say, "No, it's my protest of the dress code, which is sexist and discriminates against guys." To shorten it up, client inquires, I explain. Client tells management they don't care about how we're dressed as long as the numbers are where they want them to be, and I get fired the next week for insubordination. I'd like to say that there was a mass exodus of people who supported me, but it's Ohio, an at-will state, and it's always been everyone for themselves. However, they did close down within the year, so it may or may not be related. If the place you worked had a bad dress code, would you be willing to wear ridiculous outfits in protest of that? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Wise O Serious LOL. I can't use my hoodie as a pillow? I'll just use a blanket instead. Another tale of my senior year malicious compliance. In my senior year, I decided I wanted a fun and chill year, and I tried to stretch the rules as much as I could. One of our dress code policies was you could wear a sweater, but it couldn't have a logo on it, and you couldn't wear hoodies. I would wear a sweater every day to cover the fact that I wasn't wearing a polo. Once I got caught, I decided I would just start wearing a hoodie. Most of my teachers liked me, so they didn't mind it. Once I finished my work for the class, I liked to put my head down. The desks weren't comfortable, so I would wear my hoodie backwards, with the back of my hoodie facing my front, and use the bulk of the hoodie as a pillow to rest my head on. Again, most teachers didn't care, but my maths teacher did. She would get on my case about it daily and eventually threatened a detention for it. I said I'd take it, but only if she showed me in the student handbook where it says I couldn't wear it. I knew it was in there. I was just being annoying at that point because I was comfortable. The next day, she came in with a student handbook, pointed to the page where it said I couldn't wear the hoodie, and told me to take it off because comfort isn't part of the handbook. I complied, but that pissed me off. Malicious compliance. Right after that period, I went to the office and got myself a copy of the student handbook and spent my lunch and study hall periods reading through it when I noticed something. They left out any mention of blankets. The next day, I came in and wore my hoodie like normal, but when I got to her class, I took it off and pulled out a fleece blanket. She immediately threatened to send me to the office, and I gave her the same ultimatum. If she could find the rule in the student handbook, I'd gladly go. This time, she couldn't find it and gave a defeated laugh. so I spent the period in the most comfort I had had all year. Once I realized I couldn't get in trouble even if I was sent to the office, I started taking out the blanket in other classes and told the teachers the same thing. It wasn't in the handbook. There was no rule against it. I wasn't disrespectful about it and would only take it out once I was done with all my work, so my teachers didn't really mind it regardless. Most of them found it funny. This went on for about a month, and eventually I got cocky enough to start wrapping it around myself, walking through the halls. After a few days, I ran into the principal while wearing it, and he told me to take it off. I said no, there was no rule in the handbook against blankets. Apparently this was too cocky, because the next morning, there was an announcement. They updated the handbook, and blankets were no longer allowed in school. The end of an era. Well, blanket, it was fun while it lasted. Honestly though, the thought of going to classes, getting done early, and being able to pull out a blanket to lay your head down on sounds like next level in-school comfort. And I mean, I'm just gonna be real, I wouldn't have had the courage to call out the student handbook and cite it every time they were like, "Put that away or you can't have that." Just the fact that OP was like, "No, it's not in the student handbook, I can have it, stop bothering me," essentially, was fantastic. This next story is by Rye the Music Addict. You want me to stay at the Slicer? Okay. I work part-time at Arby's. We're known for our roast beef, which is sliced to order with a slicer. Our beef and cheddar plus roast beef sandwiches are the most popular, so when you're in the kitchen, you're going to be using the slicer a lot. I'm 17. Legally, you have to be 18 to operate it, but at my location, we don't listen to it at all. My general manager pretty much says, as long as you don't mess around with it, I don't care. We all know the dangers of the slicer, and we know not to treat it like a toy. So, I'm a great deal younger than the subject of the story, Rebecca, who was born in 51. She thinks teenagers are just incompetent children. She has it out for me, and on some days, it feels like she's analyzing my every move to criticize me if I make a mistake. Why does she have a grudge against me? Because she has a god complex, and I put my foot down. Today, we had 2 people in the kitchen. Me and Rebecca. Fun. Now, our menu isn't completely composed of beef products. To name a few, we have the brisket, Reuben, gyros, which sometimes have beef, but I digress, turkey ranch and bacon, and a slew of wraps, and that's not even our full menu. That's just to give you an idea of how much more we have than the beef. At one point, we got someone who ordered 4 briskets at once. One person can only do so much, so when I saw that Rebecca was struggling to handle it by herself, I decided to come over and help. I take the bottle of mayo from the tray and start putting it on the buns that required it. Rebecca saw this, and instead of working together, she decided it would be a good idea to rip the bottle from my hand, push me to the side, and say, "No, you just stay over at the slicer. I got this, okay?" Okay, so I go over to the slicer. I look up at the monitor. I see that someone up at the front counter ordered 3 roast beef sandwiches, so I quickly make those and send them out. I look back up. Drive-thru wants a beef and cheddar double. I make it and send it out. Look back up. Nothing that requires roast beef. I do, however, see that there's several different sandwiches not containing beef, the type of stuff you have to focus on, the type of stuff you can't do on your own. I figured, hey, she wanted me to stay at the slicer, so that's exactly what I did. After double checking to make sure there wasn't anything that I needed to do with beef, I sat down on the floor, brought my phone out, then started browsing Reddit. About 10 seconds later, which doesn't seem like long, but in fast food, every second counts, I look back up at her. She's running back and forth, scrambling to get even one thing done because she's trying to do everything at once. I look up, a roast beef slider's on the monitor, so I stand up, slice some beef, measure out 1.5 ounces, and set it on the counter next to her, since her side of the kitchen's where the slider buns and cheese and stuff are at. So it's her responsibility since she wants that part of the kitchen to herself. It was at this point I made eye contact with her and smiled. It may have seemed like an "I'm happy to be helping you" smile, but it was more of an "it's amusing to me that your instructions are backfiring horribly" smile. I then sat back down and continued fiddling with my phone. Now, my manager Julie wasn't happy about the fact that Rebecca was pushing me away and not letting me help. Julie actually found my reaction to the situation funny, but she wasn't laughing when she chewed Rebecca out for being a witch and shoving me out of the way. I love that in this story, not only was OP pushed away from being helpful in other areas, they were constantly being pushed back to the one area that they're not supposed to operate. There's a very clear insurance-related reason why you have to be 18 to operate it. OP's general manager is playing with fire there. Our next story is by Lord Ray. I did warn you about the squirting. So when I was a teenager, for Christmas one year, my mom wanted to line the driveway with luminarias, but rather than paper ones, she had seen on some craft show how to make them out of old milk gallons. They're those lighted bags or decorations you see sometimes on the street or pathways, if you don't know what they are. Maybe mostly a southern thing, but yeah, Google if you don't know, they do look neat. So we'd been saving these empty gallon milk jugs for months so mom could have her decorations. The thing was, you had to modify the jugs by cutting off certain pieces, the worst being the top because it was awkward to try and maneuver scissors and leave a clean line. So one night we're working on these jugs, and my mom sees my jagged edges and says, "Why don't we use a razor blade? It'll be easier," she said. I knew my dad had a box cutter somewhere, but I couldn't find it anywhere in his tool cabinet, and he was working late. So I grabbed 2 spare razor blades without a holder, and we went to town using those. It was faster and cleaner, but it was pretty hard to control the blade while just holding it, and then I made a big mistake. I cut towards myself, and if you've ever worked a razor blade through plastic of that thickness, you know it likes to turn and jump directions if you put the wrong pressure on it. The blade dips down and slides right across the top of my hand. Blood instantly everywhere, and I run to the sink and wash it off, only to see what can be described as a bloody eye-shaped wound on the top of my index finger knuckle. It was pretty deep, I thought, and wide, so I instantly announced I needed stitches. When I tried to look, more blood started spurting out all over the sink and counter, so I clamped it down tightly with a dirty washcloth next to the sink. It wasn't filthy, but it had probably been used to dry dishes or something like that. Anyway, off we go to the emergency room. When we get there, we're told it'll be at least an hour until they get me back. The ER nurse at the counter says, "Oh, let's get something clean on there. Here's some gauze." I say that I can't take the pressure off as the last time I did, it squirted. She says, "Oh, it's fine. I need to see the wound anyway." And I'm sure it's good now as it's been long enough. Now, I'd had this thing clamped from the time it squirted until now without letting up any pressure, because in my mind, I was going to bleed to death if I let off on the pressure. We lived maybe 15 to 20 minutes from the hospital, so it had been at least that long. The lady pulls my hand down to her face and with a cloth in the other hand, goes to swap out my dirty dish rag. When she pulls the dish rag away, there is a jet of blood that sprays all over her, the nurse's station, and all of her paperwork in front of her. She pretty quickly covers it back up with the clean gauze, and all I can mutter is, "Sorry," while trying not to laugh at her splattered with my blood and looking a mix of flustered and terrified that I was really badly wounded. Did you know if you squirt blood on a nurse, you get brought back immediately? I did try to warn her, Mom too, but hey, we didn't have to wait. I nicked a nerve and some other minor things, but a good amount of stitches later, I was set. Although 10 plus years later, I still have a good scar on the top of that knuckle and a tiny bit of numbness on the top of my finger that never went away. But no permanent damage beyond that. Plus, it's a great story all these years later when the family's around. Mom has never suggested using a razor blade for any cutting project again, and she was very apologetic about it. I feel like more than anything, this is like a big advertisement to teach kids proper knife handling. Rule number 1 is always never cut towards yourself. Honestly, maybe a story like this is the great thing to retell for kids like that, so they understand if you get lazy, you start cutting towards yourself and you slip up, you might be squirting blood all over a nurse pretty soon and getting some stitches in your hand. And our final story of the day is by Who Skewed the Pooch. You want me to stay in my lane? Okay. I have both technical and sales experience, so I answer questions in the sales support chat/queues. That is, until the head of the sales support team emailed, CCing my boss, telling me to stay in your lane. I thought, you want me to stop helping your team? I'll stop helping your team. That month was the first month sales support missed the tickets resolved satisfactorily within time metric in 2 years. Their complaints were up 140% month over month too. Guess who emailed asking if I could chip in like I used to? Sorry, but I can no longer work on the support queue due to additional projects. You're just giving assistance out of the kindness of your heart to these people. It was never even truly asked of you. You just figured, I can help these people and assist them in getting their job done more efficiently and better, and you get yelled at for it. Stay in your lane. OP must have been like, it's about time I can finally stop carrying y'all's butts around here. But that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.